After an economically receding year, 2016, the federal government launches an economic recovery plan based on diversification and social inclusion. With the National Economic Summit Group projecting a GDP growth rate of 0.6% for Nigeria's economy for the year 2017, is this a significant leap from economic recession? How can the 30 trillion naira infrastructural deficit be bridged? And what is being done to address the 29% underemployed Nigerians? These are many unanswered questions begging for answers. It's question time. Welcome to the program. I'm Benga Ashiru. You may also join in this conversation by sending us your comments on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Economic experts are adopting the private-public sector collaborations as a way out of the current economic doldrums. But in doing this, how do we address the problem of liquidity in the running of the economy? In trying to put things in the proper perspective, we met with the chairman National Economic Summit Group, Buka Abba Kyari. He is optimistic that if the budget is well implemented, Nigeria will leap out of the economic recession.
Remember that the 2016 growth was around negative 2.2 or 2.3%. Now, coming out of that to a 0.6% growth means that in reality, the national GDP will be growing virtually at over 3% for it to be 0.6% positive, because we are right now underwater by over 2%. And coming out of that to 0.6% means it may not be the kind of growth Nigerians are used to in the last 15 or so years, but certainly it is a huge improvement over what we have obtained in 2016. And even that 0.6% growth that the NESG is projecting, plus some other entities globally that are projecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1% growth, is assuming that the national economic managers are going to do some of the prescriptions that have been outlined in our Outlook 2017 document. It is a projection that is based on certain assumptions, and some of those assumptions have to come into play. So the criticality of growing our GDP for 2017 rests on the implementation for example, the implementation of the budget and the implementation of some of the economic recovery and growth plan.
So what are the indices we're looking at now? Because currently there is food shortage, everything is sending negative signals now. Prices of commodities are skyrocketing, the value of the naira is diminishing. And so what indices are you basing this 0.6 projections on?
Well, when you see the rate at which we have declined in our GDP over the last 4 or 5 quarters, you will be, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that that decline would have to reach a bottom and then turn around. So think of right now as, basically the bottom of the well in terms of the GDP growth. Now, GDP growth that is inclusive will touch more people than a GDP growth that is not inclusive. How do I mean by that? We have highlighted some key industries, key segments of the economy that impacts people a great deal. For example, agriculture. Agriculture, directly or indirectly, touches 60 to 70% of the population of Nigeria. Now, if there is productivity there and growth there, which means that the income farmers are going to be enjoying because of the added productivity, and there are 2 kinds of productivity when we're talking about agriculture. One is simply increasing the acreage under cultivation. That's one sort of productivity. The second one is efficiency. So in the same tract of land that a farmer had cultivated last cultivation season, by just simply using some modern techniques of applying fertilizer at the right time, making sure that there is enough water, etc., they can enhance productivity right there. So we have an opportunity of increasing our agricultural output by 4x where we were, say, a couple of years ago. I found it very interesting because I spent my holidays in Maiduguri this past holiday, and I've seen some rice farmers where they used to be one-season farmers who are now moving towards two-season farming by simply having access to water. And assuming they have the boreholes and they can flood their fields on time, they can actually plant during this winter season for a cropping of, say, April, May. And that basically means that the same farmer's productivity has doubled. And then assuming that he also expands his field or acreage, he will now increase that productivity by another fold, or maybe at least by another fold, or if not 2x. So we're looking at, and if this were to have happened all over the country, we will see that in the area of food security, we may actually meet the target of saying we may not be able to, we may be in a position not to import rice, say, in 2018, or certain crops and certain grains, and we might end up becoming net exporter, which actually means that some of the policies that are being pushed in those segments of the economy would actually be the catalyst for the growth.
One would also find your optimism of a 0.6 GDP production a bit of a wild optimism when we consider the